Chicken eggs. The chicken egg is by far the most common egg eaten in the world, and one of the most produced food items on the planet, with over 1 trillion consumed every single year. The chicken itself was domesticated from a wild bird called the red jungle fowl, native to Southeast Asia, somewhere around 8,000 years ago. Around 2,000 years ago, Roman officers brought chickens to Britain, and historical records even suggest that people at the Chester Amphitheater ate eggs as snacks while watching events. Still, eggs were not an everyday food, because chickens were valued more for their meat, and only became widely available in the modern sense after 1895, when large-scale artificial incubation was developed. Chicken eggs are reproductive cells surrounded by the egg white, yolk, and encased in a calcium carbonate shell, usually white or brown depending on the breed of chicken. The yolk contains fat, vitamins, and protein, and the white is almost entirely protein and water, which helps stop bacteria from growing and protects the yolk. A pale yellow yolk comes from a chicken that eats a grain-only diet, and a deep orange yolk comes from a chicken that has access to a wider diet, and generally does indicate a more nutritious and better-tasting egg. Duck eggs. Duck eggs are larger than chicken eggs, and the shell is thicker and harder. The yolk is proportionally much larger relative to the white, and the whole egg has a richer, more intense flavor. In many Asian countries, duck eggs are as ordinary as chicken eggs are in Europe or America. The yolk of a duck egg is fattier and more flavorful than a chicken yolk, and it has a higher fat content overall, which makes these eggs great for baking. Pastry chefs love them because the extra fat creates a richer texture in cakes and pastries. The whites also contain more protein and less water than chicken whites, which means they whip up into a denser, more stable foam. Balut is a fertilized duck egg that is incubated for 14 to 21 days, until the embryo inside has partially developed and then boiled and eaten whole. It's a common street food in the Philippines and Cambodia, and often eaten with salt and vinegar. Quail eggs. Quail eggs are tiny eggs that usually weigh about 9 grams, roughly 1/3 to 1/5 the size of a chicken egg. Their shells are cream-colored and covered with dark brown speckles, and the yolk takes up a large portion of the egg. The speckle pattern is actually camouflage. Wild quails lay their eggs on the ground in grassy areas, and the spots help them blend into the environment. The Japanese quail, Cortinix japonica, is the species most commonly farmed for egg production. Japan developed an industrial quail egg industry in the 20th century, and by the 1990s, quail eggs had become a staple ingredient in Japanese cuisine, appearing in bento boxes, ramen, and snacks. The flavor of the egg is subtler and slightly more delicate than a chicken egg, with a creamier yolk. Because they're small, they cook extremely quickly. A soft-boiled quail egg takes about 2 minutes, but peeling the shell is harder. In Korean street food, they are boiled and skewered. In France, they appear in upscale appetizers, often with caviar or foie gras. And in Peru, they are eaten hard-boiled as a garnish on ceviche. There is also a traditional belief in parts of Asia and Europe that quail eggs have medicinal properties, including allergy relief and improved immunity. Goose eggs. Goose eggs are often 3 times the size of a chicken egg. The shell is thick and white, and the yolk inside is huge and intensely rich. Geese were among the first birds domesticated by humans. Ancient Egyptians were domesticating geese at least 3,000 years ago, and there is evidence of goose keeping in Mesopotamia going back even further than that. The Romans kept geese extensively, partly for eggs, partly for meat, and partly because geese make very effective guard animals. They are territorial, loud, and aggressive towards strangers. Unlike chickens, goose eggs are seasonal and lay only in spring. They are great for scrambled eggs and omelets because the large yolk gives an extremely rich custardy texture. They have a very thick and strong shell, usually pale white or light blue. In early Irish history, goose eggs were seen as a luxury food. They were sometimes served to wealthy people at big banquets on plates made of gold or silver. Emu eggs. Emus are the second largest bird in the world, native to Australia. Their eggs weigh about 10 times the weight of a chicken egg and can be 13 centimeters long. Their color is a very dark green with a thick, deeply textured shell that looks almost carved. The outer layer is dark forest green or teal, and beneath it is a paler green or white layer, so when the shell is carved or scratched, it reveals a natural two-tone contrast. This has made emu eggs popular for decorative carving and art, particularly with indigenous Australian traditions where emu eggs have been engraved and traded for thousands of years. Emu eggs are similar in taste to chicken eggs, but are generally described as richer, creamier, and slightly more buttery or earthy. One egg can feed 2 to 4 people for breakfast. In 1932, the Australian government launched a military operation in Western Australia to manage an emu population that was destroying wheat crops. Soldiers were deployed with machine guns. The emus, being large, fast, and difficult to target in large scattered groups, largely survived and continued to cause crop destruction. The operation was a failure and is remembered as the Great Emu War, where the emus actually won. Ostrich eggs. The ostrich egg is the largest egg laid by any living bird on Earth. One egg can weigh around 1.5 kilograms and contain as much food as about 20 chicken eggs. The shell is 2 to 3 millimeters thick, which is the thickest shell of any bird egg, and it can support the weight of an adult human standing on it without cracking. Cracking an ostrich egg open for cooking typically requires a hammer or a screwdriver. The ostrich is native to sub-Saharan Africa and is the largest and heaviest bird alive. Archaeological sites in South Africa show evidence of ostrich eggshell use going back at least 60,000 years. They were used as water containers, which makes sense given their size and the durability of the shell. This is one of the earliest known examples of food and water storage technology in human history. In Coptic and Greek Orthodox churches, they are sometimes hung above altars or from chandeliers as symbols of life, rebirth, and divine concentration. The flavor is surprisingly mild and similar to chicken eggs, though slightly richer. The yolk is proportionately smaller relative to the total size compared to most other eggs. The sheer volume means you are cooking a lot of eggs at once, which makes them best suited for feeding a group or for use in large-scale baking. Ostrich farming has become commercially significant in South Africa, Australia, and parts of Europe, primarily for their leather and feathers. Scrambled ostrich egg breakfast takes about 45 minutes of stirring over medium heat. Hard boiling takes roughly 90 minutes. Caviar. While roe means any fish eggs, true caviar only refers to the salt-cured eggs of sturgeon fish. Sturgeon are ancient fish. The species that produce the most prized caviar, including beluga, ostrich, and cervruga, have been swimming largely unchanged for over 200 million years. They are also critically endangered today, largely because of overfishing driven by demand for their roe. The word caviar likely comes from the Persian caviar, meaning egg-bearing, and has been consumed around the Caspian Sea for thousands of years. The Russian and Persian aristocracies of the 17th through 19th centuries elevated caviar into the high luxury food it is today. The eggs are small, typically 2 to 4 millimeters in diameter depending on the species. They are firm, but pop when you press them against your palate, releasing a burst of briny, oceanic, and slightly nutty flavor. Good caviar has no fishy aftertaste. The flavors are clean and lingering. Beluga caviar, from the largest sturgeon species, produces the largest eggs and is generally considered the most delicate and prized. It was sold for over $25,000 per kilogram before international trade bans were put in place. The eggs are evaluated and graded for their size, color, firmness, and flavor. Caviar is traditionally served on its own, chilled, on a mother-of-pearl spoon, specifically because metal spoons react with the flavor and degrade it. It's eaten in small amounts, often with blini and crème fraîche, or just on its own. Turkey eggs. Turkey eggs are not common in grocery stores primarily because a turkey hen usually takes about 7 months before it starts laying, while a chicken takes about 5 months. Turkeys also lay far fewer eggs. A turkey might lay around 100 eggs a year, while a chicken can lay close to 300. Historically, turkey eggs were an important food in the Americas before Europeans arrived. Archaeologists in Mexico have found turkey eggshells and bones from around 400 AD. They are slightly larger than chicken eggs, roughly 30% bigger, with a rounder shape and a shell that is cream-colored or tan with small brown speckles. The flavor is described as creamier and more full-bodied than a chicken egg, with a slightly sweeter and stronger taste. Turkey farmers who raise laying flocks typically keep the eggs for hatching, not eating, because the commercial value of a turkey is in the meat bird, not in the egg. Salmon roe. Salmon roe, known in Japanese as ikura, consists of the large jewel-bright orange-red eggs of salmon. They are considerably bigger than sturgeon caviar and completely transparent at peak freshness. The color ranges from pale orange to deep red orange depending on the species and diet. The taste is salty, slightly sweet, and strongly ocean-flavored. Each egg pops when bitten, releasing a burst of briny liquid. In Japan, salmon roe became more popular in the early 1900s, partly because of trade with Russia. To prepare it, the egg sacs are carefully removed from the fish. The eggs are then separated, often using salt water to loosen them. After that, they are commonly marinated in soy sauce, creating a dish called shoyu-zuke ikura, which gives the roe a deeper, savory flavor. Blini with red caviar and sour cream is a classic Russian party food. The eggs are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, vitamins D, B12, and E, antioxidants, and protein. Unlike sturgeon caviar, salmon roe is affordable and widely available in most markets, particularly in Japanese or Russian-influenced food stores. Century eggs. The century egg, or pidan in Chinese, is a preserved egg made from duck, chicken, or quail eggs that have been submerged in a mixture of clay, ash, salt, quicklime, and rice hulls for weeks to months. During this time, the egg becomes super alkaline, which slowly breaks down the proteins and fats. The white turns into a dark translucent brown or black gel. The yolk turns greenish-gray or dark green and becomes creamy and complex, sometimes developing a crystalline surface pattern called pine flower or pine branch, which is highly prized in Chinese culture. The jelly-like white has a mild savory flavor with a strong alkaline quality, which some people find off-putting and others find interesting. The yolk is rich, creamy with a funky, earthy quality that is somewhat similar to very aged cheese. The combination of textures is unlike any other egg preparation, firm jelly outside and soft custard inside. Century eggs have been eaten in China for hundreds of years and are often served with rice porridge or tofu. Outside of East Asia, they are largely unknown. Flying fish roe. Flying fish roe or tobiko is the small, crunchy, colorful roe often seen on sushi rolls. Flying fish are found in tropical and subtropical oceans worldwide. Their roe, tobiko, is harvested primarily from species in the Atlantic and Pacific. The eggs are much smaller than salmon roe and have a firm, crunchier outer membrane that gives them a distinctive pop. The flavor is mild and slightly smoky, with a pleasant sweetness. Tobiko comes in several varieties: natural orange-red, black colored with squid ink, green with wasabi, red with beet or chili, or yellow with yuzu. These colorful versions are often used decoratively on sushi rolls and nigiri. Its crisp texture makes it stand out from other fish eggs. Turtle eggs. Sea turtles lay their eggs on beaches, typically at night, burying clutches of 50 to 200 eggs in the sand before returning to the ocean. The eggs are spherical, soft-shelled, and white. They incubate in the sand for roughly 60 days before the hatchlings dig their way to the surface and run to the sea. Turtle eggs have been eaten by coastal communities around the world for thousands of years, from Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands to Latin America and the Caribbean. For many communities, particularly in coastal Central America, Southeast Asia, and island nations, turtle eggs were a traditional and nutritious food source gathered seasonally. In Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and parts of Mexico, turtle egg consumption was deeply culturally embedded. The flavor is distinctive. The white never fully solidifies when cooked, remaining soft and somewhat gelatinous. The yolk is rich and creamy, with a strong taste that is more intensely eggy than most birds, with a slight fishiness. They are often eaten with salt and lime juice, or mixed into drinks as a kind of protein supplement in some Central American traditions. The problem today is ecological. All 7 species of sea turtle are classified as threatened or endangered, with some on the brink of extinction in the 20th century. In response, international conservation law banned the commercial trade in sea turtle products in most countries. Egg collection became illegal across most of the species' range. In Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and parts of Southeast Asia, illegal egg poaching remains a serious problem driven by demand and poverty. Some conservation groups have partnered with locals to create regulated harvesting programs, where a controlled portion of eggs is collected legally. Freshwater turtle eggs from non-endangered species are legally consumed in parts of Southeast Asia and carry fewer ecological concerns. Escamoles. Escamoles are the eggs of ants, and they are considered one of the most prized and expensive delicacies in Mexican cuisine. Escamoles come from 2 species of large black ants, Leometopum apiculatum and Leometopum occidentale, both native to the semi-arid highlands of central Mexico. The larvae and pupae of these ants are harvested from the roots of maguey or agave plants, where the ants build their nests. The harvesting is done by hand, carefully digging into the roots to extract the white, soft eggs without disturbing the colony too much. This is difficult, time-consuming work, and the ants are aggressive and will bite. The eggs look like small white pearls or like cottage cheese, soft and round, about the size of a grain of rice. The taste is described as buttery and nutty. They are soft and melt on the tongue. The flavor is subtle enough that they are often described as the caviar of Mexico. The Aztecs considered them a delicacy and served them at Tenochtitlan's markets. They were valued enough that they appear in the tribute records of the Aztec Empire, listed among the goods that conquered regions were required to send to the capital. After Spanish colonization, many indigenous foods were suppressed or marginalized, and escamoles largely faded from wider awareness, surviving mainly in central Mexican states like Hidalgo, Tlaxcala, and Puebla, where the harvest traditions were maintained. The harvest season is short, typically March through April, which adds to their scarcity and price. Fresh escamoles are significantly better than canned versions, which are available but lose much of their texture. At Mexico City restaurants, escamoles can cost as much as premium seafood. Pheasant eggs. Pheasants are native to Asia, particularly China and the Caucasus region, but they were introduced to Europe by the Romans and have been a feature of European game birds ever since. The common pheasant is now found across most of Europe, North America, and New Zealand. Pheasant eggs are slightly smaller than chicken eggs, roughly 70% of the size. The shell has an elegant olive green or tawny brown color, smooth and somewhat glossy, which makes them common for presentation purposes. The flavor is noticeably richer and more pungent than a chicken egg, with a pronounced depth that reflects the pheasant's more varied and active lifestyle compared to a domestic hen. The yolk is large relative to the egg size and is a deep golden orange. The white is slightly firmer than a chicken white. They have appeared in British markets, farm stalls, and restaurants since at least the medieval period, when game birds were a significant part of elite dining. The most common way to eat a pheasant egg in British cuisine is soft-boiled and served with toast soldiers, or as a single fried egg on a piece of toast.